It is that time for another edition of the Rebel Radio Podcast, which can be found at www.therebelradiopodcast.com. I posted that on my social media the other day, on our social media, I should say. Number one question I get is, how do you listen to podcasts? And we always do this at the end of the show, and every now and then we'll throw it at the beginning of the show. Well, you go to that website, and there are links on there for everything. If you click the Podbean link, it has even more links on it because we're on multiple apps. We have Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podchaser, and a few lesser known podcast apps. And you can listen right there on the website, or on Podbean. Podbean has an archive of all the episodes, and because that's our host. So that's how you listen to the podcast. You go to our website, therebelradiopodcast.com, and if you cannot figure out a way to listen to it from there, then you're technologically challenged. Let's just say that.
A little bit.
Even YouTube, if that's your thing, all the episodes post to YouTube. The only problem with the YouTube app is the YouTube app, for some reason, stops playing audio when you not when you close it, but if you just put it in the background of your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know why every other app doesn't do that. That's an audio app, but YouTube for some reason hasn't fixed that yet. So fucking weird. Like
don't you have to upgrade to premium if you want to do that?
You do. I mean, I don't know. I don't pay attention to their what they offer for premium. So
I know on whenever they did YouTube Red, I think you could get. Yeah.
That's a silly thing to have to make you have to leave the app open.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want you to look at their subliminal messaging and their advertisement. That's what it is. All to get inside your head.
That's right.
And I've decided we're not even going to bring up this ongoing writer strike anymore this week because apparently we're not knowledgeable enough or professional enough about it, as we got told by an unknown named friend of ours.
Yes.
And, who called us out. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to take the high road here and say, well, excuse us for not knowing all the facts. And he's probably grumbling right now. Those motherfuckers. But he knows who he is. So,
man,
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he knows who he is. He's listening right now, scratching his head, watching tentacle stuff.
But I will give, I do this every now and then. Yeah, I do want to, before we get heavy into the show, some shout outs to some people that either text me or mention things on social media. And that's just some of our closest friends and listeners. And my boy Lewis, who texted me today, asked me if we had covered a certain movie. And I appreciate that. My friend Sean, who I went to school with and hung out, ran the roads with back in the day. Sean's always sending me messages and his appreciation for the show. And, of course, Brett, who Brett's always texting me about the show too, and a friend of mine from I play Star Wars Galaxies with, Tracy. She's always telling me have a good show or listening on. She usually listens on Tuesday mornings, and we'll make comments. And just a few of y'all that are that do send me messages of support, and we do appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed, and and nobody on Matt's side of the family listens. No, that's not true.
No,
I have a few family members that listen. But
every once in a while, my cousin Henry will listen, but he's so busy. He works like 6 days a week now, so it's tough for him. So every once in a while, he'll shoot me a comment, and I'll be like, "Oh, he listened this week. Cool," And then I got a friend that listens to us whenever he can catch up because he listens to a lot of podcasts. But it's like if we do one that really, really catches his eye, like if it's a DC film or a Marvel film, he wants to listen to it.
Had told me that, like, I don't really want to listen about that movie, and that's fair. Maybe it's not a movie for you.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's another person I work with. I just recently met. He's my new rep for Red Bull. His name is Andy, and he was saying he listens to podcasts. He say he listened to a couple episodes. So I appreciate that, Andy, for checking us out. Hopefully he sticks with us. So a little support of our friends there that support us for the show. But how's your week been, man?
It's been good. I feel like it's moved along quite fast. I feel like we're just like going, just flowing through time, man. Like we're in a DeLorean,
Yeah, it's I
Just
feel that way.
burning
It's like,
ass. Yeah.
I mean, we're almost to August. I mean, we next week is my birthday movie pick, which is crazy. And before we know it, the kiddos will be back in school, and we'll be fucking putting Christmas trees up, before
For
long. It's like,
real.
holy shit, man! 2020, and I think it's maybe it's a testament to the year has been more normal than the last three, since COVID hit.
I
If
think
you really
so.
think about it, 2023 has been a pretty normal year considering what the world has gone through the last few years. So maybe that's why we're just back in the swing of things. I mean, definitely back in the swing of things as far as it goes to movies. Maybe the
Yeah.
box office isn't where it wants to be. Some of these movies have not been as successful as these studios would like. It's kind of disappointing to see The Flash fall down a bit and Indiana Jones because they were good films. But then we had a phenomenon hit this week where two movies that were highly anticipated hit, and they made a shit ton of money. So the box office isn't dead. But it's not completely recovered from pre-COVID numbers either. You have certain
For
films that are
sure.
really, really big hits, but you're not quite getting those consistent hits as you were before COVID, and hopefully it comes back. But this weekend has definitely been a big one for studios as Barbie hit theaters, and so did Christopher Nolan's highly anticipated Oppenheimer. Um, and I'll start because I know you also saw Oppenheimer, but you did not go see Barbie because you don't have it's not your demographic, so to speak. If that's fair. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying your wife wouldn't want to see it, but you're probably not going to go out of your way to go see it. And and man, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Matt. Knowing you, these men online are triggered by this movie, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think you might be the type that gets a little triggered by it, just knowing you. And I say that with a lot of love, brother.
Yeah.
And because I know you, I know you so well that you will watch Barbie and go, oh, I don't know, they were trying to take away our masculinity or something. I could just see you saying that, and maybe you won't, but I could see you saying that. Because I
Well,
know
I
you real
mean,
well.
just looking at the trailer, they look like a bunch of metrosexual dudes. It's like they're in
You're not.
they're in pink. You know,
You don't fall far from that truth,
yeah,
man. I mean, you waddled once and smelled like cinnamon. Okay, I've
yeah,
never forgot that
yeah.
you told me that.
This is true. This is true. My
But
past is not clear.
that's right. But I took my daughter, and I sat in the theater, and there weren't a whole lot of guys in there, but there were a lot of really good looking women. I was like, okay, this isn't the worst thing in the world. Uh, but man, it's a thoroughly entertaining film. And here's my simple answer to the masculinity attack that these men on the internet, mostly, they're probably too fat to get laid and just don't, have any kind of life, are the ones that are probably complaining about it. You know what? There's lots of men-fueled movies, a lot. Let the girls have one. I mean, it's that simple. You know,
Yeah,
let the girls have one, and they deserve it. And the movie has a wonderful message about girls and who they deserve to be in life. And the cast is really good. You can tell they had a lot of fun making this movie. Margot Robbie is great in it. Ryan Gosling's really good in it, and it's just a highly, highly entertaining film.
I heard there's like old school toys that are trending on eBay now, like the Alan doll, because Alan makes an
Right,
appearance, and I guess there was this Ken's best friend idea that came out in like the 80s or something for
right.
Barbie, and it just kind of went away because it wasn't popular, and now it's like worth $200-$300
It's
for this
crazy.
doll.
Yeah, it's like I'm not obviously super familiar with Barbie and her history. I mean, I know why it was created. That the creator Ruth, I can't think of her last name, created a doll for her daughter to play with that was more grown up than baby dolls, and she meant for it to be. Her intentions were for Barbie to be something that little girls could play with.
Yeah,
And over the years, it's expanded to different ideas and different things, and it's created an empire of highly collectible dolls. And and the movie does. I guess there's a lot of toy cameos, like you just said, that you have to be
yeah.
really familiar with
I
the
just found it.
product to know.
It was made in the 60s. This person has it going for like $949. That's more money than, the first edition Walkman that came out, with Guardians. It's crazy.
Fucking believable, man. I mean, it's just like, but good for that, man. It's good that that stuff gets popular because of something like this, and it really it deserves its accolades. It really does. It's it was a fun movie, very entertaining, legitimately funny in parts. Well acted. Everyone's, like I said, they're just having a ton of fun making this film. Margot is so good. And the movie, what I loved about it too, and this is kind of a minor spoiler, but non-spoiler, the movie's not afraid to make fun of itself. It's narrated by Helen Mirren. She does the narration of the movie. And there's a scene where Barbie's breaking down and crying, and she's like, "Oh, I look so ugly. I'm terrible." So the narrator jumps in and says, "Note to the filmmakers: if you want this to be believable, don't cast Margot Robbie." I mean, that's a brilliant joke, making fun of herself, and because she is just such a pretty lady, and I mean, definitely my Hollywood crush right now. I mean, she's smoking, and she's good in the film and deservedly so. And I don't know if the movie's going to win Oscars or anything like that. I don't know. I didn't feel like watching Barbie was like an Oscar type film, but I honestly could see like Ryan Gosling. He's really good in it. I could see him getting like a supporting actor nod, at least, a nomination or something, because he is really good in the film. And, Ryan Gosling, is known for playing kind of, good looking, tough guys, things like that. So it was kind of cool to see him play something that might have been a little bit out of his shell. But he's really good in the movie. And major props to him. And it's just a fun movie, man. And then, I've decided to, the internet and people just want to complain about everything. That's honestly what it is. And because they feel demasculated by Barbie, they want to complain about it. And it's just a fucking movie, man. Nobody told you to walk in there and say your nuts got ripped off because you saw a Barbie movie,
Yeah. I haven't seen like demasculating complaints. I've seen complaints that all the men are bumbling idiots and stupid. And they said that they don't like being depicted as, but it's like, it's a comedy, so it's like, as long as it's entertaining, as long as it's not like Chris Hemsworth in 2016 Ghostbusters dumb,
right?
Then I'm like,
I didn't think it was that dumb. But there's a purpose for it, because the purpose is that the Barbies run that land. It's Barbie land and everything. So and the kids have their place. So I didn't really feel like, it was like that, but I mean, it's fine. It is what it is,
I heard it's similar to the Lego movie, where Barbie gets up and it shows you what she does her day. There's a theme song about how everything is awesome in the world. And then she goes to the real world. And then there's real kids that show her how to make things better. And then she goes back and makes things better.
There are certain elements like that. Yeah. I mean,
which is what Lego movie is.
Yeah. It's got some similarities. There's no lie there. And then it has Will Ferrell in it, just like the Lego movie. And he's great. Hilarious. I mean, Will Ferrell is actually really funny in the movie.
I love Will Ferrell, man. I feel like he's solid in pretty much everything. I think there's some movies that are better than others that he's in, but I feel like he always brings the comedy.
Right. No, it's good. It's entertaining. There's a wonderful speech by the actress America Ferrera in it that really, a lot of women are really appreciating that speech and the way it's written. And it was good. And that's all I can say. I mean, again, if you can't just go and watch it and take it for a movie, then don't watch it. Now, the dude that was in the theater, and I normally, he was on his phone the entire time looking at TikTok. I swear. I don't think he ever left the app for 2 hours. I was like, really, dude? It's like that. It's like, And I almost wanted to go complain, but I didn't want to be that guy, It's like, come on, man.
If it was Alamo Drafthouse, they'd throw his ass out.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's ridiculous. And then I was also able to catch the same movie you caught. And, if I had known I would have been able to go Wednesday, I imagine you and I probably would have gone together. But I told you just go ahead and go because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. Yeah. My schedule opened up, and I went and saw Oppenheimer yesterday. And I know you saw it a few days ago. And we won't get into your after-movie experience because that's I know it kind of sucked for you there. But it'll all work out. But man, so
I would have preferred to see it Wednesday, that's for sure.
Right. But we both saw Oppenheimer, and I've been a big fan of Christopher Nolan since I've been a fan of him before Batman Begins, from when I saw Memento back in the day. So I've always been following his career. And man, this movie, it's hard for me to say this because I really like his Batman trilogy a lot, but this might be his goddamn masterpiece. I mean, It's this is a story about, we might go into some minor territory spoilers here, but if you don't know what this movie is about, it's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it, because it is about making the atomic bomb. And I don't think the movie is about spoiling. It's about the journey to get there, and that's how I feel. So, this is a story that on the surface sounds boring. Let's just be honest. Making the time bomb. I don't want to hear about scientists. But Nolan crafts a tale that is not boring. It's interweaved with some flashbacks and some flash forwards, but it's not confusing like Dunkirk at all. It's easy to follow.
Yes.
And the acting in this is some of the best acting I've seen.
It carries the film. That's like, there's no CGI.
No, it's an absolute old school style film like they made in the 50s and 60s where the acting tells the story. They might as well hand Cillian Murphy the Oscar right now. They might as well hand Robert Downey Jr. Best Supporting Actor right now. I think there's nominations coming for Emily Blunt and maybe Aiden Heinreich as Best Supporting Actors also because they're really good in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just solid from the beginning. Cinematography, editing, Best Picture, Best Director. This thing may sweep. It's that good. And that seems like a bit of overhype, but I really believe that. It's long. It's 3 hours. And if I had one small beef with it, I felt after the Trinity test, it slowed down a little bit. That last 40 minutes, if that's fair to say. Then it picks back up again in the last 10 minutes as it comes to its conclusion. Because you get to that magnificent Trinity test sequence and it's incredible. It's amazing. Then the movie just kind of slows down a little bit. That's honestly maybe the only beef I have with the entire movie. It's just the pacing all of a sudden just kind of halts.
Kind of drops right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But it picks back up, like I said, in the last 20 minutes or so. But just, it's refreshing to see an old school film made with just great acting, no CGI, practical effects. Cillian Murphy, my God, he's so good in this. I mean, it's one of the best performances I've seen in a long time from anybody. And
I
know you saw it too.
Yeah, no, Cillian, I mean, he's never been like that lead guy. Right. I would say even the closest maybe he got to a lead-ish role was maybe Red Eye or 28 Days Later.
Well, I was looking at his career, and he did 28 Days Later, of course, was put him on the map. And then he had a few movies where they tried to make him the lead guy, but they just weren't good parts.
Yeah.
You could tell. Yeah.
And Cillian really, I feel like he really does a really good job of portraying Oppenheimer. I mean, obviously, none of us ever met the guy, but you feel like Cillian, put a personality to it, and really, led the charge on that movie. Right. And man, he's very makes the character very interesting. And I think I want to order that book. I want to read American Prometheus now because of that. And, the book that inspired the movie. It's for sale for like $15.99 on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
Now I become Death, Destroyer of Worlds. I had a misconception about the atomic bomb. And I thought Einstein had more of a role, but he didn't. He, was like, maybe got asked a few, check down questions, and that's it.
Right.
And, didn't realize that, it was the way that it was in Los Alamos. So it's definitely, if you're a World War II fan, and you love history, I think this is a film you're going to love. And man, Florence, dude, God, is she like smoking in that film?
Yeah. And I have a confession to make. I missed the second nude scene. I had to go pee, man. I didn't know what it was in the movie. I was like, okay, it seems like a good time to go pee. And I walk back in the theater and I look up and I see boobs for a brief moment. Then the scene was over. I was like, damn, I missed the second nude scene.
What about the third one?
I thought there were only two.
No, there's three. So there's one at the beginning. Obviously, they're talking and then, whoa, they're in the bedroom. And then I feel like the second one was whenever they're in the hotel room and she's sitting in a chair. Yeah, that's the second one. The third one,
I guess that one was so quick. I didn't.
Yeah, the third one is whenever they go back to the non-flashback scene, and then Emily Blunt's looking and she's visualizing Florence on top of Cillian, and that is like the intense one.
That must be the one I missed then.
Yeah, dude, that's the one where you're like, it shows the back. She's like straddling Cillian on a chair and bouncing up and down and like grinding him. Like, it's like borderline porno, dude. And then it goes to her front, and she just gives Emily Blunt this look, and you're just like, holy crap, you know. Yeah, dude. And it's like Florence. She looks like a darn. You know, she reminds me of like a kid because she was in Fighting with My Family, and she played like a little teenage Paige. You know, and then she was in the Northman or whatever, and then she was in Avengers or whatever.
Of course, here we are perving out on her in a movie that's more important than that.
Yeah, I know, right? We're just like, geez, I never looked at her that way.
Well, it's all lots of ways now, but
yeah.
But I want to go back to the importance of this story. If an American director had made this film, I think that it would have been embellished the hero aspect of Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But I think by having a British director like Christopher Nolan make it, I think he can see it with a different eye. And I think he does enough to realize, I think the movie does a good job presenting that the science of it was important and it was a marvel, but it was also a very dangerous, destructive road they took. And that Oppenheimer struggled with his feelings towards what he did. And it also, an American director too, might have made it a little overly political. Where Nolan, I don't feel he did that. He let the images speak for themselves. There's a very disturbing shot towards the end of the film of a nuclear missile. And there's no death in it, but that image to me was so powerful that you got what they meant without it being political or without it hurting Oppenheimer's legacy or anything. I think they did a good job of appreciating his legacy, but also realizing that it's a tainted, kind of frightening legacy that he has too.
Yeah, he was afraid things would escalate, and he was, that's what he feared, and it's nothing that I don't think it's a political thing. I think it's a human thing. You don't want that weapon getting into the wrong hands. You create something that if for some reason the wrong person got a hold of it, then the whole world is in trouble. So it's crazy how he was kind of shut out because he was trying to create some kind of control, some nuclear control. And
he was hired to do a job, and that's what he was told to do. And and he had his moral qualms about it. And but he, from what they don't talk about in the movie is he got paid very well. I mean,
that house was pretty nice that he was in.
Almost generational wealth. I mean, the American government paid him very well for this project. Several $1 million, which is a lot of money back in that time. So he did get paid. So it was a job, but that doesn't mean you have to feel comfortable with your job. But just a remarkable film. I mean, from beginning to end. How good was Robert Downey Jr. too in his role? I mean,
dude,
so you see him as Iron Man.
I thought he was a good guy. Didn't realize he was kind of a villain. He's an antagonist of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, but he's so good in it.
I
mean, just the entire cast. I mean, Josh Hartnett's in the movie. You barely recognize him.
Yeah, I had to do a double take. I was like, "Holy crap, that's Josh Hartnett, Pearl Harbor." Mr. Teen Heartthrob.
I mean, just a solid film. And if you're on the fence about it, go see both films. Go see Barbie, go see Oppenheimer. Have a good time in the theaters. I don't think I'd recommend doing what people go and seeing both in one day. That's a lot of sitting down, almost 6 hours.
Dude, yeah.
I mean, but Oppenheimer definitely is worth seeing in cinemas. I think it's every now and then a movie comes along that's more than a movie. It's a cinematic experience. And that's what Oppenheimer truly is. I mean, just experience. And it's not necessarily a feel-good movie, but you're going to walk out there very satisfied with what you just watched, and you're going to understand the weight of what that movie means and what it is. And I think that's a fair thing to say. What Nolan pulled off is he told a very complex, maybe not a good story that everyone wants to hear, but he told it with a certain dignity, and a lot of that is paid to Cillian's performance. I think because Oppenheimer wasn't necessarily a good man, but he wasn't really a bad man either.
Exactly,
he was a flawed man. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, had his flaws.
Yeah. And, but
he was brilliant. He saw things differently than what most people did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and now, the world has paid the price for it, I guess it's fair to say. And unfortunately, those things are out there. And we hope that every day no one decides to use them, because that would suck.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to be burnt alive, But man, how magnificent, before we get on to a little bit of news in our featured film, how magnificent was the Trinity test sequence? I mean, it was like just a powerful, powerful, engaging sequence of the film.
Yes.
I mean, one of the best I've seen, just the tension of it and the build up. And
that silence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, and you knew it was going to be successful because we all knew the story of Los Alamos, but it's still, Nolan's direction just builds and builds and builds. And there's this moment that's just, I mean, that's the cinematic experience right there. And I'm glad that Nolan is getting his praises, and hopefully he wins an Oscar for this, because like I said, I've loved his career, deservedly so, man. He's a brilliant director.
Yeah.
And it's a good film. There's very little news because unfortunately the strike is causing not a lot of stuff.
I watched Beast Wars.
Oh yeah, that's right. You watched. Well, Rise of the Beast.
Yeah, Rise of the Beast. Yeah,
I'm going to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, so I won't. I did not like it as much as I thought I would have. I feel like the trailer, was better than the movie. There's spots that I did like. There's some good robot battles in there. Optimus, Peter Cullen, does a really good job as always. And I just feel like the human element in this film was not as good as I wanted it to be. I feel like they definitely try. They try and make that emotional kind of heartfelt human. Sorry, got some scruffiness in my throat. Yeah, dude, this guy. But yeah, I feel like it just didn't have very good establishment of that human emotion. Really, between the humans, there is a little bit between the Transformers. Pete Davidson voices Mirage, and I feel like I know he's Pete Davidson, but I feel like there's just way too much comedy in there to where it just doesn't work with him as well as I wanted it to. And I feel like I would rather watch Revenge of the Fallen or something like that. I made that comment to you. I feel like at least I've got, Megan Fox in that movie, but that's how I feel. I would rather watch that. And then they try and, make this little twist at the end that I feel like is just not going to work, but it is what it is. Yeah. But you watch it, let me know what you think about it next week.
Yeah. I'll watch it. All right, just like I was going to say, there's not really much news going on due to the Hollywood strike, unfortunately. Like, I've been scrolling through the news, and it's all like comic book news, video game news, so not a lot of major pop culture news. But one bit of news did come out, a couple of things. On September 26th, Scooby-Doo fans, you can watch the rumored to be canceled Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2 movie. This isn't Scoob 2, the other movie that was apparently being made. This is a animated Scooby-Doo movie that was apparently showed up on canceled list. And it stars a bunch of DC villains, the Joker and Solomon Grundy and all that. And I watched the trailer. It looks kind of fun. So in September 26th, you can watch Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2 if you're a fan of those Scooby-Doo movies. Some of those are actually really good, those animated Scooby-Doo movies. So,
yeah. I remember back in the day whenever they'd have Batman and Robin help Scooby-Doo. I always thought that was cool.
Oh, yeah. There've always been a lot of crossovers. And apparently this deal was signed just before the strike hit. But we all were wondering whatever happened to the Lando television series that was mentioned 2 years ago, right after Solo came out, that Donald Glover was going to reprise his role as Lando.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out Donald and his brother Steven are going to take over as writers for the show and showrunners, and basically looks like they're going to make it for Disney themselves.
Okay.
So I was, it's funny. I was thinking that the other day, like, where's Donald Glover been? I know he does his music thing and all that, but so apparently he's been deep at work with Disney to try to get this Lando series off the production line and get it onto Disney Plus. So looks like we're still going to get that Lando. Donald Glover's Lando is one of the better parts of Solo. He really pulled off a young Billy D. Williams very well. So I think
I like him, man.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun series. I think it could be a different take on the Star Wars universe. See how Lando maybe got Bespin. I think you got to go the prequel route. See how he wins Bespin and how he gets all that. And I think it'd be fun. So we'll see where they go. So hopefully they solve this strike soon so they can get it going. And get it made.
Get it made, man.
And that is literally all the news I have. Yeah, I foresee no news maybe next week if things don't progress.
I know, right? If it's nothing can happen in Hollywood, nothing can get promoted. It's like news is going to get, we're going to be like, Tobey Maguire was spotted eating a sundae.
Oh my God, that ridiculous! Why did Thomas Hayden Church? We'll talk about this.
Spider-Man 4.
Why did he say he heard? That sounds like Thomas Hayden Church read on Twitter. Someone said they're making Spider-Man 4, and he wants to say an interview. Sam Raimi's already said he's not doing it. Tobey Maguire said he's not really interested. Tobey Maguire said he would come back as Spider-Man if it's like another crossover movie, but he's already said he's not really interested in doing a solo movie. The only one that said they would do a solo movie maybe is Andrew Garfield. He has mentioned he would do it. But Toby's moved on. Sam Raimi's moved on. I can't believe that news sites, that's how slow the news is. They picked up on this rumor and posted it everywhere. Because Thomas Hayden Church, who hasn't been relevant for 15 years himself, wants to say he heard something. Oh, get out of here, man.
Now, I heard a correction to that rumor that there is another person that went and said, no, it's not that. What it's supposed to be is a fourth movie with Tom Holland. Right. And Sam Raimi's going to direct that one, and that Tobey Maguire is going to make an appearance, and he's also going to appear in not Infinity War, Secret Wars. That he's going to appear in Secret Wars somehow.
Maybe, but why would you just not bring Tom Watts back? He already directed the other 3 Spider-Man films, and he backed out of Fantastic Four. So I think you'd give him the 4th Spider-Man film if he wants it. So it's ridiculous. I do think, though, that the way the Marvel Universe is right now, they need to get Spider-Man 4 going soon. Because especially the way they ended that, it's like, let's see what happens next, and find out and go from there. Since they don't have much, apparently I haven't watched Secret Invasion, but I've not read good things about it. So we'll see.
Wow. Oh, yeah. It hasn't been that great.
All right, let's get into today's feature film, all-time classic from director Sergio Leone, and this was his. He didn't plan on making another Western, but when Warner Brothers throws money at you and asks you to make it, I'll make it. But he also told the studio, "You let me make it the way I want to make it." And Warner Brothers was like, "Yeah, okay, you made us a lot of money with the Clint Eastwood films. We'll let you make the Western you want." And that is Once Upon a Time in the West, starring Charles Bronson and Henry Fonda, who had never played a villain up until this point in his career, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But and I'm going to let you summarize this movie, because this is for a 1968 film, when films were very much told in a pretty easy narrative style back then. I think that's fair to say. This is a pretty complex film.
It is. You can simplify it by it being a kind of a revenge story. So you have McBain. And I only remember that name only sticks to my head because of the Simpsons character McBain. But McBain is trying to build this railroad, and you find that out later. And he's supposed to be beaten and coerced to sign over his land to this railroad baron, who wants to take control of that land so he can own it. But, because McBain bought it whenever it was like no one wanted it. And he knew the railroad was going to come through. Mm-hmm. And, steam engines need water, and it had like the only water for like 50 miles or something like that, a lot of miles. And so he knew that place was going to be important. So they send, some bounty hunters over there. One of them being Fonda's character, Frank. And that damn Frank, he instead of doing what he was told to do, he shoots the guy, kills him before his wife can get there, and I guess have relations or whatever, and then they shoot the kid. It's like, what? I was like, man, no way he shoots the kid. Because this is the first time I've actually like sat through and seen all of it. I've only seen bits and pieces, so this is like almost like a first time watch for me. And I was like, oh, they're gonna take the kid. They're gonna take the kid. He's gonna do errands for them. He's gonna pick pockets or something. No, they fucking shoot him. I'm like, what the shit, And so we go on from there, and she, Mrs. Macbeth shows up. And I don't know how a guy like that gets a girl like that, because she's, pretty damn. Yeah, he must have had fucking deep pockets, man. Because if you got deep pockets, if you're a 5, that makes you like an 8 or a 9.
Played by Claudia Cardinale, who is actually still alive.
Wow, I didn't think any of these characters were alive. But she kind of enlists the help of the harmonica player, who you find out actually has it out to get Frank. So once they find out who Frank is and where he is and where they're headed, him and this other hitman who Frank actually tried to pin those murders on, helps the harmonica player, played by Charles Bronson, to kind of subplot the railroad baron and Frank from getting control of that land and going and getting Miss Macbeth to basically sign over the land or have her killed. Frank goes over there, and at the end, I guess she's trying to save her life, so she's just like, hey, have some ass, and yeah. And so Peter Fonda goes over there, and he's like, yeah, you like the touch of a man, do you? He says stuff like that. So you don't know, is she trying to just save herself, or does she really like the touch of a man? I don't think she likes him, because she tries to get him killed at the end, and Bronson actually helps him escape after this auction where she gets like $5,000 because Bronson turns in Cheyenne, who is the other bounty hunter who took hitman who took the fall for the killing of McBain, and so he goes to Yuma. They go and take him to Yuma, just like they were taking Russell Crowe to Yuma. And Bronson ends up meeting Frank for a nice gunfight scene, and you find out that they've got history. Whenever the harmonica player was younger, they made him hold up his brother, who had a noose around his neck. And of course, he got too tired, fell to his knees, and his brother hung. And that harmonica was stuffed in his face, and that's why he had the harmonica the whole time. And he blows a hole right through his chest, turns him around with that shot. It's freaking masterfully shot, of course. Zooms in on the eyes, and Charles Bronson's eyes, are really, really well like shot, for like the tone, depicting the tone of the moment. And just the pain and the anger, I feel like you can see that in that shot when they go back and forth between Fonda. But he's able to take him out, and Miss McBain gets the station made. You can see it being made at the end of the film, and it shows the railroad going through.
She offers Harmonica to stay, but he doesn't want to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to stay because he's the lone gunman man. Right. That was his duty in life, and now he must carry on.
And the strange thing about this film is originally when Leone agreed to make it, he wanted all his usual players to come back. He wanted Clint Eastwood to come back. He wanted Lee Van Cleef to come back. Mm-hmm. He wanted Eli Wallach to come back. And they all were like, no, we're done. We just spent 6-7 years making movies with you. None of them wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So Leone kind of told Warner Bros. Like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need a star. And he wanted Henry Fonda. And Henry Fonda first turned him down.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't play bad guys. And then Sergio Leone sold it to him like, hey, imagine this when the audience sees you for the first time and they see your blue eyes and they're like, holy shit, that's Henry Fonda. And Henry Fonda liked the challenge of playing a villain after Leone sold it to him like that. And then he showed up on set with contacts and a beard and stuff. And Leone was like, oh, no, get rid of all that. We want to see your face. So that we know that the audience knows that they're seeing this guy who's played good people his entire career is playing a villain. And,
that's awesome, man. Yeah.
And it's definitely And you can imagine who those guys would have played. I imagine Eli Wallach would have played Cheyenne. I think Clint Eastwood would have played Harmonica. Lee Van Cleef probably would have played maybe Mr. McBain, but then he would have been out early in the film. But, you just think of the parts that those guys would have played. Probably. Yeah. And
I would have said
Van Cleef
that
would have played Frank. Yeah.
Yeah. He would have had to play Frank. That's the only way they would have been able to do it.
And but you definitely could see Eli Wallach being Cheyenne.
Definitely.
Even though Jason Robards is fantastic in the role. Of course, he went on to have a great acting career too, Jason Robards. But this movie is definitely more artsy than Leone's other films. There's a lot of long shots in this.
A lot of long shots.
The opening sequence is like 13 minutes alone, and but it's brilliant because they said they tried to put music to it and nothing worked. So that's why you hear the sounds of the water dripping, the windmill chiming, the chair rocking.
Yes, it all adds to the suspense. Something big is coming.
The fly,
you just don't know when it's going to come. Yeah,
and it's awesome. Yeah, it's that first 13 minutes. It's gripping. You're sitting there watching, like, what's going to happen, and it's fantastic.
That's how you open a movie, man. I feel like that's how you open a movie.
It's one of the greatest cinematic openings of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best Westerns ever made. Maybe one of the best films ever made.
Yeah. And it's funny because when it came out, it wasn't a huge hit, but a lot of that was Hollywood just being moviegoers, being a little tired of Westerns.
I saw that.
And it was
barely made its money back.
Yeah. The movie was the original cut that showed in Europe was one that we watched. It's available now. It's almost 3 hours. They cut it back to about 2 hours and 15 minutes for the U.S. theatrical release. So there were some things in the movie. It didn't flow right. The pacing was off. It wasn't until years later. Critics initially didn't like this either because of that. And years later, once the full cut came out, it was more widely available. It started building that cult status. People realized how good it was. And now it sits at 8.0 and higher on most rating reviews. Most critics see that this is a classic. It's not my personal favorite Western because it's a little slow in parts, but I appreciate what this movie does.
Yeah.
As far as a Leone film, I'm always going to like The Good, and the Bad, and Ugly. And my favorite Western of all time is always going to be Tombstone. That's just my favorite Western. But I appreciate this film for what Leone does in it because it's the cinematography, the acting across the board is fantastic. Some good shootouts in it. We never really have the super standoff in this that we got in other Leone films. We have smaller standoffs like Frank and Harmonica at the end. But and Leone did that on purpose. He's like, I've already done the epic standoff. He kept these a little bit tighter,
He did.
But it works for the story is told. It still is amazing to see Henry Fonda playing a villain because this was America's golden boy. He was a good guy. He didn't play bad guys. And like you said, I would love to be in the theater in 1968 and see him shooting that kid as a movie fan. That had to be mind blowing to see that happen. Now it's not any less sad, but we see that kind of stuff in movies, and now so we're a little jaded to it. But that had to be just as a moviegoer, like, well, what did I just witness? And we've talked about that before. Movies, you can go back in time and witness them for the first time with those reactions of the day, and that's one of those moments in this movie.
Yeah, man, it's just he's so cold blooded, and he's a little despicable. I think Lee Van Cleef may have been. He has that despicable look about him, Lee Van Cleef. Fonda doesn't, but he does a really good job of really, portraying that sleaziness.
Sleazy, despicable.
Yeah, the way he talks to Miss McBain. Whenever he's with her, you're just like, oh man, get your hands off of her, man. Geez, man, what are you doing? So that's how I felt about him.
It says we've been on perverted track already today. This movie shows some skin for 1968.
It sure does, man.
And her side boob, and I'm like,
side boob, dude.
For 1968, it shows quite a bit, because that was still taboo back then,
Yeah, man, that's still times where below the knee, it's like, whoa, you're showing some leg.
Yeah, because Elvis was starting to do his thing at this point, but again, that was controversial. What do you mean Elvis is shaking his hips?
Yeah,
it's like, that's not allowed. You can't show girls. But it's also interesting to note that for a Leone film, this was actually all shot in English. A lot of his films were shot with actors with different, they would film their own languages, they would dub them over.
Yeah.
But majority of this film is all shot with English actors and their actual voices. I didn't notice a lot of overdubbing in this compared to some of them. I'm sure it's there. I just didn't notice as much. Like Good and the Bad and the Ugly, it's obvious when Clint is speaking English and the other guy's speaking French. You can see it,
Yes.
And it's all dubbed over, But that was the style. That's why they called it spaghetti westerns.
That's right.
It was funny. This movie, it has a spaghetti western style to it, but it's also maybe not as spaghetti western as the Eastwood films were. It's more of a standard western in some ways. It's more just by style with the long shots and the epic feel and the music and another amazing score from Neo Morricone. Is that how you say his name? I mean, he did all of Sergio's.
Yeah, no, and I like how the gunshot, whenever he does shoot the kid, the gunshot goes off and then boom, it's like the train. You just see the train, horn going off, and it's like I was like, oh man, I was like, that's a pretty cool technique, transitioning over to that scene that way. I thought that was pretty nifty. Yeah,
no, it's good, and but you watch this, and as much as you think like Leone wanted to work with people worked with before, but kudos to Charles Bronson and Jason Broussard's or I might have said his name wrong, and Henry Fonda for just they are so good in these roles. I mean Bronson, is a guy that for a long time I wasn't aware that he did some westerns and things. He was always known as the Death Wish guy, and then he went on to make B movies and stuff. But he did The Great Escape. He's really good in that, and he did this, and he did a few other movies of this style, and it shows that he was a pretty versatile actor. That I didn't realize till as I got older how much Bronson did as an actor, and he's calm, cool, collective, and like you said, Leone is masterful using his eyes to tell his story.
Mm-hmm. And he just zooms in on him, man. And I feel like, he's able to act a lot just by showing him. And I was like, he's one of those directors I feel like that can get, a little bit more out of an actor. Because like you said, Bronson was like the B movie king, the action movie, revenge movie, big old dude, and this one, he does a good job of, showing that other like emotional side to him that he lost his brother and that he's, still hurting but he's also, angry and he has that rage in him and wants to take out Fonda in his revenge arc.
Yeah, he plays it with a good subtlety, and it's well done, And I like the twist where he, brings Cheyenne in to buy the ranch. I was like, oh, that's, first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's pretty genius.
$5,000.
Yeah, and then he had a whole plan to help him escape too. Because I thought that was a brilliant little twist in the film. Because I'm sitting there going, what's going to happen here? How's she going to sell this ranch? And he comes around the corner like, oh, look, I have this guy.
I didn't realize it was shot in Spain.
Yeah, a lot of his films were. A lot of Leone's films were shot in Spain. Most of The Good and the Bad and the Ugly and all those were all shot over there. Yeah. And I think that's why part of the reason Eastwood and them kind of turned him down. They spent many years over there filming, and Eastwood was ready to be at home and not travel all the time.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas, I guess he lobbied for that role. He played Cheyenne, and he wasn't sought out by Leone. He was like, hey, I want to be in one of your films. I like your films. And I guess he got his agent involved and was able to contact Leone and was able to get that role.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas did a lot of westerns too. People don't know about, but man, just this is a good episode for remarkable films. A brand new movie that's in theaters. That's a remarkable film in Oppenheimer, and a really good movie in Barbie that's in theaters for people to go see. And then we discuss an all-time classic that. If you've never seen, you should see. It's available to watch on Paramount Plus. If you like westerns and never watched Once Upon a Time in the West, sit down and enjoy this film because it is really good. And sometimes it's hard to get into older films because they're paced a little differently than modern stuff, and their stories are told a little more through dialogue and exposition and stuff like that because that was the style of storytelling. But still, it's something you can sit down and appreciate and really enjoy. And Once Upon a Time in the West is an absolute all-time classic. That's worth watching.
One of the best movies ever made. If you haven't seen it, definitely go see it. It's long, last of all. Even the credits last long at the end. They last 10 minutes at the end. But it's entertaining. Even the credit scene. So, if you got some time, you got some burnout from the movies that you've been seeing lately because just so much has come to theater this past week, and is going to come next week with Turtles. I hear that's going to be pretty good.
I'm on the fence about that still. The kids kind of want to go see it. I'm like, yeah, we might. I mean, I'm on vacation the week after next, so maybe I'll take them to go see it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely check it out, especially with it being on Paramount Plus. It's like $5 a month. Check it out.
I'd rather watch Turtles though than Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, definitely.
So next week we go from one classic movie to another classic film but a classic film that's more. Maybe not as well known. You have to be in more cinema circles and things and follow cinema to understand this. And it is my birthday pick next week. My birthday is coming up, and so we're going to go talk a film from my favorite director of all time, and that's of course John Woo. And this is his film that created the heroic bloodshed genre. I mean, with this movie, we've already covered The Killer and Hardboiled, which are his two more famous heroic bloodshed movies. But it all got started with this.
And Face Off.
Face Off's a heroic bloodshed movie. But it all got started with this film in 1986, and that is A Better Tomorrow.
而家上頭就係查緊黑社會滲入警界嘅事，而且最唔中意就係警務人員嘅家屬係黑社會分子。
我執行緊職務嘅時候，根本冇諗到有呢個大佬。喂，你咩都唔知點做人大佬啊！阿傑，唔好再叫我做阿傑，叫阿 Sir。阿 Sir， 我冇做大佬好耐啦。睇下你自己似乜嘢？做衰人嗰時俾人鬧，做好人嗰陣連行兩步都俾人跟蹤啊！
俾條生路佢行得唔得？
打大戒指俾佢害死㗎，你做咩逼我接受佢啫？
唔好打啊！
我咁大隻未喊過，嗰次係我第一次流眼淚。我發誓以後都唔會俾人用槍指住我頭。你再咁樣出去打死你個廢仔！靚仔，唔好揾槍指住我頭。你夠膽就開槍打死我！開槍！我已經冇咗個細佬，我唔想連你呢個朋友都冇埋。我就唔想成世俾人撳住嚟打。你好中意同人恨啊！ 我衰咗3年，我等一個機會，爭翻口氣，唔係要證明話俾人聽我威，只係想話俾人聽我唔見咗嘅嘢，我想自己攞翻。而家時勢唔同，如果唔同我合作，你哋根本冇第二條路行。停手！有事慢慢過啊！大家停手啊！
輕笑聲再為我送溫暖，你為我注入快樂強電。輕輕說聲，漫長路快要走過，終於走到明媚晴天。聲聲歡呼躍起，像紅日發放金箭。我伴你往日笑面重現，輕輕叫聲，共抬望眼看高空，終於青天優美為你獻，擁着你，當初溫馨再湧現，心裏邊童年稚氣夢未污
染。Starring a very young Chow Yun-fat. This is a movie that really gave him his start in Hong Kong. He had already been known for soap operas and things like that, but Wu cast him in this film, and it's quite an epic film for the time. We talk about movies with practical effects. This movie's all practical effects and things like that shot back then, and it's not my favorite Wu film, but it's definitely one of the best, and it's worth watching for people who have never seen it. I know it's gonna be a first time watch for you, so I'm curious what you're gonna say about it. And this movie was so popular in Japan that they were selling out of trench coats everywhere because of this film in 1986. That's a true story.
Wow,
stores could not keep trench coats in stock because of this film. But a highly influential movie, and when you see it, you'll know exactly. You've already seen early John Woo films, so you know how influential he is. But Better Tomorrow is another one of those where you'll see how influential his filmmaking was. And I'm looking forward to talking next week on the show. Going to be a fun one. But until then, man, the rebelradiopodcast.com, as we mentioned earlier in the show, is where you can find all your Rebel Radio needs. And we thank you, as always, for listening. And until next time, continue to be safe. This has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
And remember, as always, just go there and do it.